Hi folks, I am Alan Watt and this is Cutting Through the Matrix on the 8th of June 2009. For newcomers to the show, and people, thank goodness, are always coming in all the time, more and more ages, young ages, as they start to ask the right questions. I always advise them to go into cuttingthroughthematrix.com website, but as you know, I've had in the recent past troubles with them, so people should go into that site regardless. Look at all the other sites I have where you can download from. And it's a good idea that different people pick their favorite sites to download from. That spreads the bandwidth, gives them all less of a chance to come back at me and say there's too many people coming through one system. Because all kinds of games are afoot at the moment, and one day the Yahoo sites no doubt will be yanked again. This is the second time it's happened. So, as I say, here's the other sites anyway, cuttingthrough.eugenicist.com. That's a very reliable site. It has all the audios of my previous talks on it. cuttingthroughthematrix.net.us.ca, and also remember that Alan Watt Sentinel.eu, the European site, also has all of these audios to download, and it also has transcripts you can download for print up. Some people do a lot of hard work interpreting these particular talks for different languages, and you can print them up and pass them around to your friends. Remember, you are brought to me by yourselves, basically, because I'm probably the only person out there that doesn't do the deals with the advertisers, because it gives me more free range to talk about different subjects, etc. Therefore, I rely upon you for support, so you can always donate to me. It's on the site how to do it, or you can buy that for which I have for sale on the site as well. You can purchase the books I've written and so on. That keeps me going. It's expensive, and I'm expanding into more sites because I know more are going to get pulled in the future. So different servers and spreading the stuff is a good idea for the future. Those who simply get the CDs passed around to them, burned, and stay away from computers who are wise, because it's a limited venture anyway until they pull the reins in. You can write to Alan Watt, Site 41, Box 4, Estaire, which is E-S-T-A-I-R-E, Ontario, Canada. Postal code is P as in Peter, 3 as in number 3, E as in Elizabeth, the number 4, N as in Nora, the number 1, P3E4N1. And checks from the US and Canada are fine. They both get cashed in the banks here because they're all owned by the same people. We're really in a rush as we go into this whole new pre-designed global new world order in the times of crisis. The century of change, 2001 kicked it off, and we're getting rapid changes one after another. We are, as Plato said, the most adaptable species on the planet, so we go through one crisis after another and forget the last one. We forget that our lives have changed forever since September 2001. That's what we're told by the big boys themselves. The day that it happened, life would never be the same again. Followed by various scenarios for upcoming disasters, climate change scenarios, terrorism everywhere scenarios, no one is safe scenarios, we all must be ID'd, watched, monitored, etc., total information network, yada 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 yada. And also we're seeing really through it all the end of any idea of democracy. Because as I've gone through the Club of Rome's talks, I've read them to you on the air, and the other big organizations and the United Nations, they've said democracy is simply too cumbersome to get anything done. You're learning to be ruled. I'll be back with more after this break. Hi folks, this is Alan Watt and we're cutting through the matrix. The matrix is the system in which you live. It's your reality that's projected into you from your birth to your death, and most people never ever figure it out. They go through their entire lives thinking that all the opinions they have are true because everyone else shares them, because you're all getting the same programming at the same time on a daily basis. And they literally die, never ever knowing that everything that happened in their life, every major event, was planned that way, long before they were born. And I was mentioning that since 2001 we've had crisis after crisis. Remember what they said? I think it was McCain or Rumsfeld that said it. They said things will never be the same again. And they meant it because they'd already been teaching for 40 years in academia, especially the Ivy League colleges, etc., that the 21st century was a century of change, and they explained to each other what the change was. They don't explain it to the public. It's the change from a democratic type of system, an input from the people, where you couldn't just boss them around and implement plans and so on without the acceptance of the public or input from the public. The new system is authoritarian, completely authoritarian. And if you look at the history of the United Nations, it's fantastic to see that do you understand that everyone who works as a bureaucrat at the UN are just like the bureaucrats in the feds? They're intergenerational families. They actually have their own schools for their children at the United Nations, where they train their own offspring to be up-and-coming bureaucrats. And they're taught that the world that they will inhabit and the world that they will be in authority over is not a democratic one. They dictate down to the public and expect you to obey. And if you won't, they'll use force. That's what it was set up to do. Because there are two definitions of freedom. You have to go into Isaiah Berlin, who also was the mentor of Tony Blair and many other Fabian socialists, to understand what they mean by that. The second type of freedom, as they call it, there's negative and positive. The second type is basically where the whole world comes together, works for a plan, a common purpose, a term first given out by H.G. Wells a long time ago. And you've all heard of common purpose associations in Britain running the country, infiltrating everything and working for the big foundations. Well, under a common purpose in a war scenario, we all allow ourselves to work towards some definite, what we think is a common purpose, an ending where we all benefit. It's always a lie, by the way. H.G. Wells, again, the propagandist for the big boys, coined the term the war to end all wars for World War I, when he had no intention, he knew darn well what his real purpose was to be. But we're kept in this matrix, and since 2001 we've had the terrorism nonsense, and it changed from Muslims to blue-eyed blonde people to your grandmother. Everyone is a possible terrorist now, and you have no rights, privacy whatsoever, and we're being dictated to by everybody with a uniform. But we also are getting ready for natural disasters, and at the same time global warming and CO2, and our whole way of life has to change for that too. So there's a war on that. That came from the Club of Rome in the 70s and now put it into effect. And then after that you have the coming plagues. Oh my God, there's plagues as well as at the same time. My goodness. So within a few years we've had crisis after crisis. We've been pillaged and raped by the bankers, who got well rewarded for it again. That was another one too. I forgot that one. You just can't keep up with every crisis. It suddenly came one after another because we're on a roll. And I said years ago, when they get us to the stage of crisis after crisis till we're stampeding, they can guide us so easily. All you need is a couple of guys in their front on the horses, and you can steer the steers. That's what they call steers. You steer them in the direction you want to go. They have no idea. They're just panicking and going where they're pointed to go. That's what's being used today. Pavlovian brutality. That's what it is. Easy. Now, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, or actually months ago, about the study that came out where I think it was a Japanese fella, scientist, had successfully, he and a big team working for the Center for Disease Control, successfully created a killer flu by taking 3 of the genes that altered the old flu in World War I into the Spanish flu, the 3 particular genes, and combined it with a modern strain just to see what would happen.